I had nothing on, and he suddenly walked in the medical bay door, hissed open without warning, and Lieutenant Maya Brooks froze in place, completely exposed as captain. Jake Morrison stepped through the entrance. Maya had just finished her decontamination shower after the mission on Kepler 7 and was reaching for her uniform when the door cycled open. She grabbed the nearest medical sheet, but it was too late. He had already seen everything. Jake stopped mid-step, his eyes widening for a fraction of a second before he spun around so fast he nearly collided with the doorframe. His ears turned red as he faced the corridor. Zori. I thought the bay was empty, Dr. Chen said. You were done with decon an hour ago, he said, his voice strained. And Maya wrapped the thin sheet around herself, her heart hammering in her chest. The xenobiologist had never felt so mortified in her entire career. Had to run the cycle twice, she managed to say, her voice barely steadied. The spores from the surface, they were more persistent than I thought. Jake kept his back turned rigidly, his shoulders tense. I should have knocked. I will wait outside. I stepped into the corridor, and the door sealed shut. Maya pressed her hands to her burning face and let out a shaky breath. This was the absolute worst timing possible. She had been developing feelings for the captain for months, and now this happened. Dressed quickly in her standard-issue jumpsuit, her fingers fumbling with the fasteners when she was decent, she called out for him to enter. Jake came back in, keeping his eyes carefully on her face instead of letting them wander anywhere else. His professional mask was firmly in place, but she could see the tension in his jaw. Came to debrief you on the surface findings, he said, pulling out his datapad. The council wants a full report on the indigenous species. You encountered. Maya nodded and moved to the medical console, pulling up her research files. Her hands were still shaking slightly, but she just forced herself to focus. Beings on Kepler 7 are unlike anything in our database, she began. They are silicon-based life forms with a collective consciousness they communicate through. Biochemical signals that we initially mistook for atmospheric interference. Jake leaned closer to view her screen, and Maya caught the scent of his soap, clean and masculine. She swallowed hard and continued. They are completely peaceful and incredibly curious about us. They allowed me to take samples and even demonstrated their ability to manipulate their molecular structure. Fascinating, Jake murmured, his eyes scanning her data. Then he looked at her directly, and she saw something flicker in his gaze, something that made her stomach flip. Were they hostile? At any point, never, she replied. They were actually protective. When the spore cloud emerged, they created a barrier around me with their bodies. That's how I got so contaminated. Nodded slowly. So you were never in real danger net from them, Maya said. But the spores were trying to colonize my skin. That's why I needed the extended decontamination. Jake was quiet for a moment, then he set down his datapad. I need to apologize again for walking in on you. That was unprofessional. Yura felt her cheeks heat up again. It was an accident. These things happen on a ship this size. Sistel, he said, meeting her eyes. I should have been more careful. Held his gaze, feeling something electric pass between them. The air in the medical bay suddenly felt charged. Mission on Kepler 7 had been her first solo planetary. Simon and Jake had personally selected her for it. He believed in her abilities even when others on the crew questioned whether a xenobiologist fresh out of the academy was ready. You gave me a chance when no one else would, Maya said, quietly changing the subject slightly. I wanted to thank you for that. Jake smiled slightly. You earned it. Your research proposals were brilliant. Felt warmth spread through her chest. That means a lot coming from Ya. Stepped closer, and Maya found herself unable to look away from his intense blue eyes. Maya, I need to tell you something, she breathed. Been trying to maintain professional distance. He said, his voice low, but it's getting harder every day. Her heart raced. What do you mean? You know what I mean, he said. Simply, I've seen how you look at me, and I look at you the same. Why, Maya felt like the air had been sucked from the room. Are you saying, Jeem, saying that walking in on you today made me realize I can't keep pretending I don't have feelings for you, Jake said. Then he grimaced. God, that sounds like I'm taking advantage of an awkward situation. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. No, Maya interrupted, stepping closer. Don't apologize. I've been hoping you felt the same way. Jake searched her face. Are you sure? Because fraternization regulations don't care about regulations? Maya said, boldly surprising herself. We can be discreet. A slow smile spread across Jake's face. Discreet on a ship. With 40 crew members? We'll figure it out, she saw Jake. Reached out and gently tucked a strand of her damp hair behind her ear. The simple touch sent shivers down. Her spinethus is crazy, he murmured. Mabe. She agreed. But I don't want to fight it. Any more. It cupped her face in his hands and leaned down slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. But Maya closed the distance between them and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, but then Jake pulled her closer and the kiss deepened. Maya wrapped her arms around his neck, feeling like her entire body was on fire. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jake rested his forehead against hers. We've crossed a line, he whispered. Good, Maya said. I was tired of that line anyway. Jake laughed softly, but then his expression turned serious. We need to be smart about this. The crew can't know. Not yet, Maya nodded. I understand. Kissed her again briefly, then stepped back reluctantly. I should go before someone comes looking for either. Ovus. Maya felt the loss of his warmth immediately. When can I see you again? Alana, tonight, he said. My quarters. 2200 hours smiled. It's a day. Jake moved toward the door, but paused and looked back at her. You are incredible, Maya Brooksu. Are not so bad yourself, Captain, she replied with a grin after. He left. Maya sank into the nearest chair, her legs suddenly weak. She could hardly believe what just happened. The mortifying incident of him walking in on her had somehow led to the confession. She had been hoping for. Rest of her shift passed in a blur. Maya completed her reports and samples analysis, but her mind kept drifting to Jake in the way. He had kissed her at 21:30. She returned to her own quarters and stared at her limited wardrobe selection. Everything was standard issue uniforms and basic casual wear. Finally, she settled on simple dark pants and a soft green shirt that brought out her ice one. She arrived at Jake's door at exactly 2200 hours. Her palms were sweating. She pressed the entry chime and waited. The door slid open, and Jake stood there in civilian clothes. Dark jeans and a gray shirt that fit him perfectly. He smiled when he saw her come in, he said, stepping aside of his quarters. Were larger than hers, as befitted his rank, but still modest. There was a small sitting area, workspace, and a door that presumably led to his sleeping array. Replicated some wine, he said, gesturing to 2 glasses on the table. Perfect. Maya sat together on the small couch, and Jake handed her a glass. Their fingers brushed, and Maya felt that electric spark. A Gento. New beginnings, he said, raising his glass to broken rules. Maya added with a smile. Lethe touched glasses and drank. The wine was surprisingly good for replicated vintage. So Maya said, how long have you been feeling this way? Jake considered the question honestly from the moment you presented your research on silicon-based life forms in the briefing room. You challenged Commander Grant's assumptions with such confidence. I was impressed. Maya remembered that briefing Grant had tried to dismiss her theories as impossible, and she had stood her ground with data and logic. She was terrified, she admitted. Thought Grant was going to have me removed from the mission. Jake smiled instead. You made him look foolish in front of the entire senior staff. It was beautiful, she laughed. I didn't mean toys. You did, he said, and that made it even better. Maya sat down her wine glass and turned to face him fully. What about the regulations, though? Really, are we risking our careers? Jake sighed. The regulations exist for good reasons. Power dynamics, consent issues, fraternization can destroy unit cohesion. No, Maya said quietly, but, he continued, we are both adults. You are not directly under my command. In the chain you report to the science division, and we are equals in terms of rank. Privilegesso, technically, she prompted. Technically, we are not violating anything, he said, but perception matters. If the crew thinks I am showing you favoritism, it could cause problems. Than we keep it private, Maya said. Until we are sure this is real. Jake reached out and took her hand, and this he gestured between them. Does this feel real to you? Maya squeezed his fingers. Yes, it does. He sat in comfortable silence for a moment, just holding hands. Tell me about yourself. Jake said, what made you want to study alien biology? Smiled. It started when I was 7. My father took me to the Xenozoological Gardens on Earth Station 3. I saw a crystalline creature from Alpha Centauri that could refract light into music. I was mesmerized. Beautiful. Murdy knew then that I wanted to understand alien life, she continued. To learn how different beings evolved and adapted to their worlds. What about you? Why did you join the fleet, Jake? Leaned back against the couch. My grandfather was an explorer on one of the first deep space missions he used to tell me stories about. Discovering new worlds, meeting new species. I wanted that life. Did he inspire you to command? Maya Askid inspired me to explore. Jake corrected. Command came later when I realized I was good at making decisions.